Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Appreciate you for tuning in live or listening to replay. We're going to do an awesome episode today talking about considering getting a trust. This is episode 122. So we always appreciate all the live listeners, all the replay listeners. Been doing this for years and just really excited about the response. And so just look forward to continuously talking about the subject matters at hand, particularly trust, foundations, charity, business, things that really can improve lives. So definitely going to focus on today's episode 122 now. And we're going to be talking about considering getting a trust. Thanks King Kong for tuning in live. Appreciate you. Everybody else, if you're tuning in live through the chat, always appreciate you for tuning in live. Feel free to type into the chat. Always appreciate that. So, today, considering getting a trust, we always can start out with some news. Definitely always love saving news for the week's episode throughout the week for the traditional Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time episode. But let's just hop into it, nevertheless. The reason why we wanted to do this episode is so many people talk about this initially, whether that's through consultation, whether it's through the internet, whether it's face to face. They say, "Oh, I'm considering getting a trust right now," and the question always is going to be back, "Well, why are you considering getting a trust?" And it's not a traditional business structure. Not a traditional for retail investors and things of that nature. But overall, it's still not traditionally publicly advertised. And someone says, what are they considering getting a trust? And I can tell you right now, across the board, the reason why they're considering getting a trust is because it's called AUM, Assets Under Management. No one goes into a trust without an asset. So when people contact the vault and they say, "Oh, can you start a trust without an asset?" You're gonna have to look into that because, of course, you can, but traditionally, when you sit down with someone and they say, "I'm considering getting a trust," they're considering getting a trust because they have assets. They have assets under management, or they're potentially going to have assets under management. And that is the whole focus of the vault. That's the whole focus of the trustee training program. It's a 12-week program we have. And as well, if you want to reach out for consultations, feel free to email christian@trustchristian.com. It's in the description. But someone saying that they're considering getting a trust is because they have assets. So someone that has assets, it might be assets that they're looking to acquire, or it's assets that they're looking to acquire, or they're assets that they already have and they just want to put themselves in a position where that is more protected. Why? Because trust business entities, if you've ever heard of corporate personhood, uh, these entities are persons. So it puts an individual in a position where, or people in a position where they're able to not only get rid of being able to be hit with an asset liability aspect of it, and then they put it into a position where it's protected. Asset protection comes through asset separation. Own nothing, control everything. Considering a trust. You're considering getting a trust. Why? Because once again, you have assets. And people say, well, okay, I'm considering getting a trust, but I don't know which one to go into. You don't know which one to go into. Okay. So where are you going to go to get that knowledge? You can go to the vault for a consultation. There's over 80 different types of trust. They're still making up trust at this point to continuously have more legislative entities in place. And so it's really interesting to know that most people don't know that this entity is out there, that they're able to protect assets, and then once they come into that space, they don't know necessarily who basically or who to talk to traditionally. So when you're considering getting a trust, traditionally you're always going to talk to an estate planner. An estate planner is someone that definitely has knowledge of the law, whether it's definitely public side, but on the back end of that, someone that is going to have a plethora of family office tools at your disposal. They're going to have estate planning accountants around them. They're going to have even traditional lawyers around them. They're going to be able to talk to you about the different 80 different trusts and things of nature. And that's what we do at the Vault. We definitely do private family trust consulting, and that's very important when you all are looking to find out, well, hey, which one should I look at? And so just being able to have a relationship where you're able to talk about those things and be able to gain clarity on the space that you're looking into. You think about it, even as an entrepreneur, who told you to go into the LLC? Who told you to go into the S Corp or the C Corp? Was it the accountant that you paid? Was it the lawyer that you paid? Who was it? Was it your family member? Was it your friend? Did you have disclosure on all of the vehicles before you got in them? It's like you go into a car dealership and you saying, okay, I want to be able to go from point A to point B. Well, instead of you going to a Ferrari dealership where that's you considering getting a trust because you know a Ferrari is going to get there faster than a Honda, if you go to CarMax where you have a bunch of different cars, CarMax may not have a Ferrari, but they might have a very fast vehicle in their parking lot. And so now you have the opportunity at CarMax, in this particular example, to look around and say, okay, this is what a Honda, this is what a Toyota, this is what a Nissan is, this is uh, uh, what other cars? Pontiac, GMCs, Fords. You get to see all of those cars traditionally on a you get to see all those cars traditionally on the car parking lot. You get to see all those cars traditionally on the CarMax parking lot because they're not one specific brand. So it's like when you go to a specific style of lawyer. If you're going to a business lawyer, they might tell you to go into a LLC if it's one person. They might tell you go into corporate if you're looking to go IPO. They're going to tell you some different things because it puts you in a position to know what's going on out there. It might do S corp for shelf and holding multiple companies. So once again, asset protection, if it's going to come through asset separation or separation, then clearly you're in a position where a business or a trust or C corp, S corp, whatever is in place to actually do what it's supposed to do. And so being able to contact an environment such as the Vault to be able to find out, well, what is an S corp, what is a C corp, just even being pointed in a direction is very, very important. C corp, why am I going C corp for what is that, why am I going C corp for in general? And so if you're considering a trust because of assets, and sometimes the C corps, S corps, traditionally, when you look around, they're generally operating businesses. They're businesses that are in the public and things of that nature because they are public. So it really puts you in that type of position to know those type of things. But every time we get someone that says, oh, they're considering a trust, it's traditionally because they have a house, they're in real estate. Real estate can be protected, obviously, by entities, even corporations. I think just the dynamic of business information out there is very, very important to have that dynamic to know what's the difference between the entities and things of that nature. And think about it. Why would you be considering a Ferrari? Well, you're looking to get Ferrari results. That's what it is. Thanks, Marlene, for tuning in live. Lady T. Lady T, we actually have financial advisors in the Vault, so they're able to talk to you all about that. Clearly we don't just do an episode about uh, IRAs anyways, because those are government retirement programs. They're tax deferral programs. Those are things that you can research on your own. So when it comes to the Vault, is what's not public, what has not been taught in the public. And traditionally, IRAs. Hey, I was sitting in front of an individual the other day talking about, oh, let's go into a high yield bond. First of all, that's a public investment. If it's in your name, what's the point? So oh, go into a high yield annuity. Oh, we're going to go into annuity. I've seen some people talk about annuities recently. Are you kidding me? Annuities on the public side. We're talking about the Vault. We're talking about private trustee training. See, why is it that people don't like the non-sexy quote unquote things? And what's so crazy is we got to just go ahead. Why are you considering a trust? Here we go. To pass on a legacy, to pass on assets. Was why a trust doesn't do what me and you do. A trust doesn't die and pay taxes. It's an asset holding vehicle from one generation to the next, to hold property from one generation to the next. There's many different ones. Yeah, it can be used as a business vehicle. We all know that. It can be used as an asset protection vehicle. Once again, Ferrari. You know what a Ferrari is. You know how much a Ferrari costs. It's more than $100,000. It's more than $200,000. They go up in value. What's the purpose of having a trust if you're not going to grow assets? So not only does the Ferrari pull off the lot, it still holds its value once it pulls off the lot. I was talking to a partner earlier about a Rolls Royce, and ladies and gentlemen, a Rolls Royce is not a regular car. It doesn't lose half its value when you pull it off the lot. So if you're going to drive a car, why not drive a car that holds its value? Well, I don't know. I don't have the money. It costs like $400,000. Okay, so how many cars are you going to buy in your lifetime that's going to equal about $400,000 with interest? 4 or 5 cars, each car costing $50,000, $80,000, $100,000, and it's something that holds its value. It's a handmade vehicle, very detailed, very precise, one-on-ones. So it holds. When we talk about asset protection, or at least something holding an asset, we definitely want it to grow as well, from generation to generation. Now, there's statistics. I actually read this earlier that by the time the assets get to the second generation, 60% have failed in trust. That's why trustee training is around. We knew that. We were taught that. We knew that trustee training was imperative. Why? Because it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're not able to be in a business or an industry or an entity and be able to pass those lessons along that you learned from one generation to the next, you did everything for nothing. Because the second generation, by being a child, has the opportunity to listen to the lessons, to get the lessons, like all elite, the 40% that actually maintain the wealth from the second generation to the third. Guess what? They actually took some of the lessons. Second generation, the first generation probably did take the lessons. They were the immediate child. And then you get to the second generation, and things get watered down. People don't want to be hard. People don't want to focus on what the reality is. It's assets under management at this point. See, when people say, "Oh, I'm going to work for money," you're going to work for an asset. Isn't money an asset? So you're going to work for an asset. Robert Kiyosaki, a great mentor, always said from 18 years old now, he said, rich people don't work for money. They work for assets. What are you working for? That's why you're considering getting a trust, because you already know, okay, I've worked, money's been made, but look at the assets under management. Maybe you've accumulated some assets under management, and you see, wow, okay, there's something that's out there that I don't want to be sued. I don't want to be sued out of these assets. I want to protect these assets. Why are you considering getting a trust? For asset protection. That might be one reason alone. It might be able to pass along assets from one generation to the next. It might be able to do business with people in trust. Always a beautiful thing. People say, "Oh, I trust this person. I trust this person." Well, if you trust them, why aren't you in a trust with them? And the reason why you won't go into a trust with them is because you don't trust them. Considering getting a trust. They say almost 90%. Let's pull up this article. 90% of the families from one generation to the next are not able to maintain the wealth. Okay, here we go. So, where's that article at? Measuring worth. If you all want to go to a really good article out there, but okay, measuring wealth, you all can feel free to go out there. I think the actual website is actually called measuringwealth.com. I think it is. Yes, it is. And really wanted to go over that aspect where the money's just not able to pass along sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, from one generation to the next. They say 90% by the third generation, and that just shows you that there's a lack of education being provided to this industry. So when you see industry such as the one that we're talking about, which is trust, ladies and gentlemen, when you see that there's an industry called the trust out here, think about it. They say right now in Singapore there are 2 billionaires created every day. You know, or every week. Even if it was every week, it's 52 weeks in a year. That means they're graduating in their country over 100 billionaires every year. What's the United States doing? What is your state doing? Are you in an environment that fosters that type of growth? If you're in that, what they say, you're a product of your environment. What environment are you in? Are you in an environment that fosters trust? Are you in an environment that fosters assets under management? Or are you involved in an environment that says, hey, get a job and work hard, work till you're 65, let the Social Security Administration Trust pay you out $1,200, $1,600 a month. If you got that much in there, you can live off of that. And you see the type of statistics that are out all over the place. And so, always appreciate everyone for tuning in live or listening to replay. I encourage you all to ask any questions inside of the stream if you have any. It's always appreciated. But we just want to make sure that we did this episode because there are a lot of people that say, oh, I'm considering getting trust. Well, what are you considering it for? See, individuals that are planning, and planning is critical. Not, hey, be told to come in at 9 to 5. Planning is, okay, there's assets that are going to be acquired in this lifetime. They need to be stewarded from one generation to the next. And that involves being able to be in the correct position. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he's in charitable trust, and particularly private family foundation as well, and manages over $33 million locally, but that's a really big deal for that local area. And what was so interesting is to see the mindset of individuals that are inside of trust, inside of philanthropy, and understand that it's about stewardship, ladies and gentlemen. It's about stewardship. It's about trusteeship. He understands that he's a steward. It's a very critical position to be in. We don't own anything. That's why it's own nothing, control everything. How can you own something you didn't create? And we know who the creator is. I think there's some things that a human can create, but particularly an entity is a piece of paper. It's an artificial entity. It's separate, distinct. It has a name. That's why it has a name. It's a person. See, we live in a world right now where businesses have become people. They've always been, though. They're the family last name and a business position. They're the family last name and a charitable position. That's what it is. Considering getting a trust is putting the family last name in a position to trust assets from one generation to the next, to help out from one generation to the next. So, the people that listen to this podcast, people that listen to this YouTube, they're traditionally people that actually plan and think out 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. So, thank you, Brother Ben Yesahara Al, and the Herus, Dr. Heru. Best way to establish any trust for your family. Once again, there's over 80 different trusts. So there's a private trust consulting, private family trust consulting. It has to be specific to the family. Not every family starts in the same position, but they also the reason why they're considering even getting into a trust for their family is to what? Protect assets. They know they're either going to have them, they know they have them now, and they're looking to do what? Pass them along, possibly. A lot of times you hear trust fund babies. A lot of you all know about the trust fund baby term. These are people that have been set up by the previous generation. Has your previous generation set you up? Then you might be considering getting a trust. Why? Because you also understand what a trust fund baby is, and you want to make sure that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, and successively, once again, they don't die. That's why you see the Rockefeller Trust going on still. That's why you still see the Rothschilds Trust. 200 years later, Rothschilds Trust still going on. The Rothschilds Trust. You see Carnegie's, the these names. Go ahead. Let's go ahead. I got a list over here for you all. Some of the families that were able to stand the test of time right now. Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, the Astors. And then you get ones that are from, you know, previous generations that are from other cultures. So we definitely want to just stick to more of the American style of culture. You see what's going on. I was sitting with an individual the other day, and they said, "I don't know what a private company." We were sitting with a private family the other day, and the private family said, "Well, I don't know, what did they say?" They said where to put the we got to get that question back. The stream changed, so just paying attention to that. But appreciate you, Trey Stone. Um, it says, "Can I put a house in a trust if I still have a mortgage?" Those are questions, ladies and gentlemen, that when you come to the vault, we make sure that you can go to any attorney the same question. There's a private answer and there's a public answer. So even in the private, you still are able to explore public options. That's for sure. But when you go into the public, how do you know the private options? That's a public attorney. Considering getting a trust, or at least a private trust, is for you to be able to know that there are other options other than what's publicly colloquially disseminated via a public institutional bank. When you're considering a trust, even at a bank, traditionally at a bank, they're looking for how many assets you have under management. That means the bank account or the actual hard tangible assets: diamonds, clothes, jewelry, cars. So, public answer, private answer. You can contact the vault, Christian at trustchristian.com, for a consultation. Go forward from there. That answer right there is something that could easily be asked to a public attorney, and you can get a response on that. As we were sitting in front of a family the other day. They asked, "What does a private family look like? The Cargill family or a private company look like?" Well, it actually says, I'll type this into the chat for all of you all that are live. You're getting a treat. The Cargill family is, y'all can Google that or Wikipedia, whatever you want to do. They're the largest privately held revenue family in the United States. Why have you never heard about them? Why? You listen to the vault. We've talked about them for years. So everybody's gonna have their moment, like Robert Smith had recently, where they're gonna make a cultural impact, and that's when you'll know about them. But when you're in private equity, when you're in private trust, you see these things. They're right in front of your face. Cargill is operating. Most of the companies, the over 40% of the companies you touch on a daily basis, have some type of Cargill financing involved in it, some type of financing shareholder position from Cargill. A lot of them. Cargill is one of the largest privately held companies, once again, in the States. A lot of the businesses you touch are dealing with them. And you see this across the board. They say, "I don't know how to start up a private entity." It's so critical, ladies and gentlemen, to focus on family, and family's private. Family law is private law. The contracts for the family are private. So when we talk about private companies, how are you going to get acquired at, or private moves? When Brother Ben says, "Can you put a house in a trust if you still have a mortgage?" Consultation, privately, not publicly. Public puts you in a position where you can go talk to an attorney. You can get that free information tomorrow or today, and we encourage you to actually do it. Go ask them that, and then ask them, "Well, what type of trust? Does it have to be a specific style of trust?" Considering getting a trust, you would need to know the entire gambit. See, doesn't the lawyer work for you? Doesn't the lawyer work for the family? Doesn't every family office have a family lawyer and accountant? Yes, they do, because they're building an office. We were out early today already and looking at family trust properties. And when you think about family trust properties, isn't that the family house? The family house is a business. The family is a business. It's business, not personal. Public school tells us to make everything personal. That's your feelings. Don't they say there's no feelings in business? There's a heart, there's a conscience, there's a human element to it. The way people treat athletes and actors, oh, take a picture, I see you. They can't live a normal life anymore, right? Yeah, so now they've moved into a position where they have to be private. They're not public anymore. They're a public figure, but they're private in their lifestyle. They can't go out the house anymore. It's the same thing with this. Isn't it business? Every time they step out the house, it's business, right? I want to see my favorite artist's name. So that's what you want to see. You don't want to see their normal name. You don't even know their normal name, their quote unquote government name, who they quote unquote really are. You see the public perception, the public personality. You're considering getting a trust so you can still maintain that privacy, so you can still maintain that private lifestyle. And that's what they do across the board. Steven Spielberg's got trust. Steve Jobs had Pixar in trust, passed along that entire estate to the children, the 4 different trusts, even and his wife. Did it successfully, and that was one company, Pixar. He had multiple holdings. Still had got back in with Apple. The family is supposed to have a family house, right? That can be passed along from one generation to the next, so the children are having to step out and get in an apartment and spending money in an apartment because the family is focused on growing the family, not individual needs, not individual selfish needs. It's focused on family. Considering getting a family trust means I want my children to do business with me. It means I want my family members to do business with me. It means I want my family members to invest so we can have something for generations to come. If you live in specifically the United States of America, that is their biggest push, is the American dream. The American dream is being able to set the next generation up. What are you going to set them up for? To go out and work? Are you going to put them in a position where there's still less than 500 million people in the United States, the opportunity to create opportunities around the world in undeveloped countries? The United States is considered to be a developed country. It gives you a trust. Considering getting a trust allows you to operate internationally. Don't they call them multinational corporations? How is it a public entity able to operate internationally? Did you know that? We hear that. And we say, let's talk structure. We sat in front of an accountant the other day. Appreciate you if you're listening. Look forward to sitting down with you. But how is a public entity operating internationally? I can tell you there's a heck of a liability, and just a heck of a liability. Keep what's domestic, and international separate. So you're considering getting a trust because your family wants to invest together. You want to acquire some properties together. You don't want your grandchildren or your children to fight over the properties that you're going to be giving them anyway. That's why you're considering getting a trust. It's so your family's not fighting over assets when you pass away, or so you all can administer an asset. If somebody gets down and out, there's a family house providing for them. That's what the contract was set up for. That's what the legacy was set up for. What are you working for if it's not to set up the next generation better, or to help out ones inside of the immediate circle get back on their feet, to contribute to the family trust, to perpetuate the wealth from one generation to the next? But everybody has their reasons, and we do our best to go through all the gambit of the reasons why people are considering getting in a trust. Because trust is a person, like me and you. If me and you consider ourselves persons, which are business entities that have to report. Thank you, Lewis, for tuning in live. Once again, everybody, we appreciate you all. If you all have any questions considering getting a trust, please feel free to type into the chat. But the biggest thing is getting that consultation, moving forward, learning, okay, this is how I need to be established and setting up and moving forward, acquiring, building the team out. See, we're talking family office establishment. We're not talking about individual go to work and come home and that's life. It's focused on creating a legacy from one generation to the next. And it involves something that can do that. And so feel free to reach out, Christian at Trust Christian. We look forward to hearing from you. And moving forward, it's always a pleasure to serve you all in trusteeship and focus on owning nothing, controlling everything. That's why an individual, most individuals, I don't want to bring this word up. It's starting to become more and more ugly. I enjoy talking about these topics, but when people say, oh, it's a lot of people want to get into trust for tax purposes, and then just say, hey, when you even look at the president of the United States, Donald Trump, you think he's not in trust? I always ask people, did Donald Trump file personal bankruptcy, or did the companies he was managing, the assets under management, they weren't able to be maintained? So, assets under management. Assets under management. So, did he file personally, or was it the companies? And then you look across the board at a lot of celebrities and you say that they filed personally. What's the benefit of filing personally? A lot of these individuals are already in trust. A lot of these individuals are already in a business position. A lot of these people around them have good lawyers. So it encourages you all to put together a team, put together a family office. Now, if you come to the vault, that's what you're going to get. Family office conversation, establishing positions. The family has to work together. The wife and the husband, the children and the mother and father, the uncles and the cousins, the grandmother. It's business, not personal. It's family business too. And this is how legacies are passed on. This is how you know of the last name Hilton. This is how you know of the last name Rockefeller. Tell you that you don't see a lot of the newer tech individuals want to put their last name on things. Why? Because they're completely focused on privacy. They don't even want to be known as the owner. They say, just call me the founder and CEO. Don't even call me the owner. These individuals have large companies that they're managing, large assets under management. We've shared with you all Roy Seabag. Roy Seabag is a quote unquote founder of the company goldmoney.com. Company generates over $100 million a year. When you look at his salary, he pulls down $1. I think we did a report. If you all want to Google Jeff Bezos making less than $100,000, how can you be the richest man in the world but your company's paying you less than $100,000 a year? How does that work? We know how it works. It's called, he was considering getting a trust before he got into that business. He actually executed it. And that's why he rides around in $500 plus suits, $1,000 suits, nice ties, private chauffeur cars, and private jets. When you have $100 million company, you definitely think that it's international too. You go look at the website goldmoney.com. You go look at it, it's a very successful international gold company. Very, very successful. And he's successful because he founded it. So it's just great conversation. Appreciate you all. We got a bunch of people on the stream. If you all are on the stream, feel free to type into the chat. I always appreciate that, or just say hey in the chat. If I put a car title in my trust would have the same value of the title, right? Great question, Anthony Pooler. Anthony Pooler asked the question, if I put a car title in my trust, and my trust will have the same value of the title. Titling doesn't change the value of an asset. So if the car has value as an asset, it doesn't change the value. That's if you give me $1 and if you give me $1 and I give you $1 right back, the title changed. I don't have it anymore. It's yours now. And on the back of that, the value of the dollar is still the same. It's still the value of $1. So just look at it analogous to that same situation. It definitely always going to seek public legal counsel for those type of answers and more in depth. But traditionally, when you look across the board, an asset holds the value to the beholder. So if you want to go perceptually, or if you're talking intrinsically, early today I actually acquired some assets, hard tangible assets. That price fluctuates every day. So maybe you put the asset inside of a trust and it holds value at one price, but over a period of time it may lose value, it may gain value. That doesn't mean that it actually is going to hold the same value all the time. Why? Because that particular asset, whether it's a car, whether it's gold, whether it's silver, you all know gold and silver fluctuates every single day. That's an asset. This individual, Anthony, wanted to talk about a car, but a car, you can go Kelly Blue Book that. But when we talk about silver and gold and art, those are still assets, right, Anthony? And so what happens when you take that and put it inside of a trust? Does it change the value of it? And once again, the value of the asset might change it because of the transaction may not particularly put an encumbrance on it as far as lowering the value. But as you all can see, there are many assets that may be placed in a trust that say, hey, the value is going to change of it. Why? Because that asset in particular, it may not have it just may have an intrinsic value that fluctuates, or nominal value that fluctuates based off of it being actually traded now in the marketplace. But gold still holds supreme, silver still holds supreme. How come no one in the public's talking about gold and silver, but they're considering getting a trust? Because they haven't had the proper private education, and that's what the vault provides, period. Gold and silver is sitting in front of an individual. He said, oh yeah, my mom, I used to collect gold and silver coins back in the 70s. Like, wow, such a dirt cheap price. And he said, yeah, mom, I talked to my mom one day, and she actually took those assets and sold them away. I went back to her, was like, hey, I want to go look at my collection. And she said, oh, I sold off some of them. And he said, darn it, why? Because gold is over $1,300. Or, excuse me, well, pretty sure we're over 1,100. Not going to look at the market exactly today. I'm pretty sure for sure it's been over 1,100 for a while now. But 1,100, you got silver that's sold $14. Silver went up to almost 40 bucks, 35 plus bucks in the States, in American dollars, primarily in the past 5 years. So if you have been held in an asset for a long time, that's what happens. James White doing their classic cars. Classic cars, they fluctuate, but what's so awesome is, if you take that car and put it in, that's even better, putting that car in a position where the trust owns it. Because we come to the vault, we have creative ways to maneuver, which are, once you even sit in front of us and you're able to sit in front of even legal counsel with you, it's always best to have that second confirmation. But to even have the first initial conversation is very, very critical, very, very exciting, because you're getting the content that you need to have you and your family office execute privately and maintain a certain level of success in assets under management. So James White even said my coin collection, which is really cool. So I don't see we have any questions. I appreciate you all for tuning in live or listening to replay. It's been a blast. Definitely we're going to continue doing episodes, but we just wanted to address a lot of times, what people are getting, considering getting a trust, and what they really can expect. What you can really expect is going out in the public, talking to a traditional lawyer. We even talk about an estate planning attorney, or you look at just a traditional trust lawyer. You're going to have to specifically, Google that. That's not something that you just, I'm going to go to my local person. It involves you actually doing diligence with someone that particularly either specializes in trust, and actually asking them to educate you particularly. But the vault does that. But if in the public, you all know the results. You get your period of time and all that good stuff. But talking about you're gonna interview them, and then there's gonna be a family office that's gonna be established, possibly, or an asset holding vehicle, or just a vehicle in general. But going to an attorney on the public side, you're gonna get public attorney trust knowledge, and when you come to the vault, you get the private trust. Talking about the private, because that's what the vault provides, and that's what we talk about. So in the consultation, so focused on maintaining privacy, but always excited about doing that. So I appreciate you all, but that's what you all can expect. You can expect getting in there. You're gonna be asked who's gonna be the beneficiary. You're considering getting a trust. You gotta definitely know who's the beneficiary. Who's gonna be trustees with you if you're gonna be a trustee? Who's gonna be the trustee? What's gonna be the name of the trust? That's what you got to think about. What's the name of it going to be? A lot of people don't even have that aspect prepared. Okay. So Anthony Puller, you can get a consultation. Christian at trustchristian.com, if that wasn't clear. So once again, considering getting a trust means you're going to if you're considering getting a trust, you're investing. What's the purpose of having a vehicle that's meant for investment purposes or asset under management purposes? Usually it's not an investment if it's not an asset. An asset yields results. An investment is to yield results. Cash flow. So we look forward to hearing when people contact us for consultations. Have done that for a long time. But when it comes to asking, questions that specific are for yourself, those are questions that have to be understood completely in a dynamic way, in a way in which they address all of the needs for that particular family, and that's always important. Everything has to be individually tailored or tailored to the family. It has to be, because it's a team involved. It's not one individual anymore. It's a team. Someone sets it up. Someone manages the assets. Someone's going to be beneficiary. People get in trust, say, "Oh, I'm going to sit in a trust," considering getting trust to just sit on an asset. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not the vehicle. The vehicle is for the benefit of the beneficiary. For the benefit of the beneficiary. Who's the beneficiary? That's private. In our environment, Warren Buffett said, "I'm not going to give the money to my children. I'm going to give it to charity." Do you know what charities he's giving it to? They're the private family foundations that his children manage. The charities that they run. He didn't give it to them directly. Anything you own, you can be taxed or sued for. So what's the purpose of owning it? So they're considering getting a trust. That's what Warren Buffett did. That's what Bill Gates did. That's what individuals that have something to lose do. Appreciate you all for tuning in live. Peace and blessings. Look forward to hearing from you. Christian@trustchristian.com. Look forward to another pop-up episode or next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.